So we have a few questions, but it's more of just an open conversation we're going to go through here, just kind of hitting on the main things. The first thing that I want to ask you about personally is so the first thing I had ever seen of you in your career online was probably about a year ago during your first viral laundromat video talking about, running and owning this laundromat. So if you wouldn't mind, can you tell me a little bit more about how one comes to own a laundromat and make an entire viral series out of it?
Those are two very different questions. The me getting a laundromat's pretty straightforward. I'm a real estate guy. And at some point in real estate, you can figure out how to kind of just set deals up so that essentially you don't have any money out of your own pocket. Oh, cool. Thanks for the premium sub, BP. And make sure, just a note, if follow Josh Terry, there should be a link somewhere on my Twitch. I would appreciate that. And he would too, I'm sure.
Yes,
but in real estate, there gets to be a point where it's all about the deals. It's not about you getting money to finance the deal, or it's not about trying to scrimp and save every dollar that you can for a deal. It's finding a deal. So with a laundromat, I knew the location. I had seen the books 2 or 3 years prior to me acquiring it. The story was the guy died. His elderly 80-year-old grandma was running it, but she could not effectively run it because she could not physically carry the quarters out of the laundromat. And instead of hiring somebody to help with quarters, she just shut the whole thing down. And a big time investor came in, bought the location, wanted to do it, or did eventually do it as a 24/7 operation. No people involved other than someone coming in once every few days and cleaning it and collecting the quarters. And the person that was doing the quarter collections and things of that nature had no interest in it. And there was $800 when I took it over in quarters left in machines. Several of the machines were physically broken due to too many quarters in them. They'd gone so long without a collection that they broke the machines. The quarters broke the machines, right, which is something that can't happen inside of a laundromat. So I called an investor from that I have a relationship with in San Francisco. And he's like a lot of these higher net worth individuals. When you go to them and say, "Hey, I want to buy a laundromat, it's going to cost you $40,000," they're like, "Oh, I will sort through my couch cushions. I'll go get money out of the couch, and that's it." And essentially, we were able to get the money for it. I have no money out of pocket on it, and we bought it. And I thought, man, these laundromats are just cool. I love the physical nature of the machine. I love the clickiness of some of the equipment. It's just a really cool thing to have. I thought, I should share this with the world via YouTube, which I've tried to do other real estate content. I've tried to do other video projects before, and they just fell flat on their face. I did the laundromat and got a much better response with the laundromat as opposed to I bought a train station, which I bought a train station 4 or 5 years ago and was recording the renovation, and I had like 100 people watch the video, and that was it. I was like, that really was depressing that I had spent time trying to record what I was doing there. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool clickbait headline too.
Yeah. I bought a train station and no one cared about it. Then I did a laundromat, and the first, I want to say the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I had maybe 1,000 people watch it. It's like, holy crap, this is awesome. And I just kept shooting videos, kept shooting content. And then Graham Stephan has a second channel called The Graham Stephan Show. And at that time, he had about 250,000 subscribers on it. And they did like what amounts to a casting call. Do you have a neat story that you can share with us? And I was like, hey, I bought a laundromat and I own 100 rentals. And long story short, we did a 15-minute phone call. His guy, Jack, thought it was a neat story. So Graham called me, interviewed me. He put it on his second YouTube channel. And I got probably 10,000 watches plus another 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers off of it. And that took me to the point that I was able to get monetized. And I think one of the dirty little secrets about YouTube, and maybe it's not a secret, but at some point, you end up with a situation that you get monetized, and then all of a sudden you're eligible for the viral traffic. It can show you can do the viral traffic thing. And then October the 17th hits. And then that video that I had like 5,000 watches on or 10,000 watches on suddenly overnight has 250,000. And then the next day has 500,000 watches. And it becomes this thing. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, holy crap. And then I get calls. People are coming out of the woodwork. I have threats. People are like, oh, you're a slumlord. I can't believe you would take advantage of people at the laundromat. And just all of the things that you could ever imagine with becoming like an overnight, 15 minutes of fame, internet, YouTube celebrity guy. It's just all like, included. Oh, well, my life's different now. And so it's just been that. The traffic started dying down in March, which I was fine with because I got this crazy trailer park project to work on. And then I had all these people say, your laundromat is the best clickbait I've ever seen before. You should do TikTok. And I was like, yeah, that sounds right. I don't have to shake my booty to get on TikTok. Maybe we can interest people with quarters and briefcases full of cash. Because I don't know if you can't see it on the little thing here, but I've got my bill counter with $100 worth of dollar bills in it because I can play the Scarface Godfather thing with cash everywhere.
There you go.
And the TikTok stuff just took off.
Right.
So
that's glorious. There's nothing wrong with a little theatricality.
Yeah.
Oh, so I love it.
So it's been this wild ride, and I never know how I come off to people. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's Brandon the Hillbilly Millionaire," and there's other people that they get angry that I'm a landlord, and it's just the weird nature of all things social media.
From watching your stuff, I really appreciated the simplicity of the laundromat, because we're sort of in the day and age of the complexity and making the fanciest thing. And there was something beautiful about you just making something work, and that's where the real wins are, in just making something work.
And that's where I want to go with YouTube so bad, and my TikTok so bad, because there's so much opportunity out there for people, and they just, in a real general sense, your average person doesn't understand how much opportunity there is in the world, especially in this country. Right. In my opinion, but I've been in business since I was 15 years old, been in real estate since I was 21 years old. And I've talked to guys with 9-figure net worths. And it's just, I've got a couple buddies that have 9-figure net worths, and I talk to them not on a daily basis, but every so often. And everyone has the same mindset. Everybody says the same thing. There's so much opportunity out there. You just have to go grab it. And that's so different than how I grew up with going to church down in the foothills of Appalachia, where everybody is dirt poor. Yeah. Dirt poor. And when you grow up that way, that's a mindset that it's, poverty's inescapable and you'll just live this way till you die. That's just how life is, everybody. And, going on that tangent, we went to church down in the hills. And the pastor of the church, my parents would go to their house on a regular basis. They were in a single wide trailer, and the trailer was on like 10 course of concrete blocks. And every time you got in the trailer shook, and it was only held up by four corners of concrete blocks, which is totally illegal now that I own a trailer park. That was so illegal. And I remember as a 6 or 7 year old kid looking out the front porch, I'm like, the only saving grace here is if this trailer starts sliding off the hill, at least they got a gigantic satellite dish in their yard. And I think that might stop the trailer. And it's just like, that was kind of what I grew up with. And it was like, this is just how life is. This is just okay. Then I go,
it's not weird. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And then I get real estate. I get under the mentorship of a former oil CEO. He met Hugo Chavez, the president of Venezuela. He met all the cabinet of the people in Venezuela, because at one time Citgo was or maybe Citgo still is, entirely owned by the government of Venezuela. And that was a big deal back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So here I am sitting in an office with a guy who grew up on a farm. He didn't own a pair of shoes till he was 8 years old. And he's telling me about sitting and eating dinner with dictators. And I'm like, he grew up the road from me, and he's like, yeah, I never saw a dollar bill till I was not 8 years old, and my mom took me to town to finally buy me my first pair of shoes. And I'm like,
God.
holy crap, this is just like I mean, he grew up in the 50s. He's now
Right.
70 something. And I'm like, how did this guy grow up as a poor kid? And he ended up getting bored of being a CEO of the largest oil company in my area. And he just wants to get in real estate, and he wants to sit down and eat lunch with me like 3 times a week.
That's pretty glorious.
Yeah, that's
How does this happen?
well,
And then it's
that rags to riches kind of mentality is one of the craziest things, even about your content. I think that might be one of the biggest draws. It's just a young kid from Ohio who can grow up to overcome the issues of kind of like the poverty line. I grew up in the middle of Indiana, and like the idea that someone born into not a giant city or a wealthy family can go on to own mass real estate or have amazing opportunities is a really crazy mindset change for someone born in areas of the world like we were. So just hearing it, right? Like here you are sitting with these important people. Now you go sit with people, and to them you're the important people. That's incredible.
There's a thread that's connected to the mindset shift. When you mentioned getting the first laundromat, you mentioned the lady that wasn't able to carry the quarters, so she didn't go find somebody who could carry quarters. She went and sold the laundromat, and I think that's part of that mindset where the lack of opportunity is part of that mindset. And I'm wondering, like, how do you expand on when you're starting out, you start by like doing most of the work yourself, but then as you start to expand, that becomes not even close to an option. And so how do you find ways to think outside the box of somebody else could do this, basically?
Yeah, and to me, that's kind of like the biggest disconnect or the biggest failing in society that we've got now is connecting those two. How I am at this point in life. How do I get to the other point in life? And as I grow in my business, I find out that networking plays such a huge aspect of that.
Right.
But then it's how do you get to that point where you're used to networking and you understand it? And,
Right.
that's why I like social media, because with social media and the internet, we have this ability that's never existed before in the world. We can connect to everybody else. I mean, I've never met either of you before in person. And it's a possibility we will never, ever meet together. And in that aspect, it's like, oh, this is still a game changer. This still gives us just this unbelievable power to communicate with people, to network with people, and to collaborate and work together in the hopes of achieving something better or beyond us as individual people.
But more,
and I think
sorry, go on.
And I think that once people understand that, and if the normal person can get that through their head, and then they start working on the thought of, okay, so how do I use this for my benefit? Then it starts this just unbelievable internal process, so
Yes.
that now you can start working on the pieces together, because you don't know what you don't know till you're kind of self-aware that that's a thing, that's an issue.
Yes,
So,
and that's kind of what I wanted to dig for, was the idea of, I mean, if you're in a scenario where you, to use the analogy, can't carry quarters,
Mhm.
your mind asks a different question.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, what are those questions when you run across the thing that you can't carry? What's the first thing that pops to mind for you?
If it's a physical thing or a
Like
like
the
mental
analogy
thing.
of like, oh, this is a job that I can't handle, but it needs to get done.
What should happen is I should immediately say, "Oh, I can find this resource. I can develop a resource to do it."
Mm,
My
yeah.
biggest struggle right now is I look at it and say, "Oh, I will go take care of this,"
Yes,
and
I do the same.
yeah, I lose so much money on that. It's just
Right.
astronomical.
Yeah, I've
astronomical.
been working with a bunch of folks, and that seems to be the most common thing that we're all dealing with is across the board. We're coming to a problem, and we're trying to solve it ourselves. And it's funny because I think it makes perfect sense, because the thing that gets us to a certain level of success is we take on responsibility. We choose to
Mhm.
take on responsibility for something. We look at the world and we go, okay, I'll do that. And then we hit a measure of success, and then our reward system register. Oh, look, I have taken on a piece of responsibility. I've taken on a task, and I've gotten success. So
Mhm.
now it becomes sort of our gut reaction to take on the task, because that's what gets us where we want to go according to our
Yeah.
reward systems. But what
Mhm.
gets you to one level doesn't get you to the next level.
Yeah, and it's my buddy Sean. He says I do a lot of minimum wage tasks, and I am not a
Ah,
minimum wage. I am not a minimum wage guy, and it's one of these things where he has found himself. He's spending 10 hours a week driving a person that currently has a DUI on his record. He doesn't possess
right.
a driver's license, and he's driving him around town 10 hours a week. And I said, couldn't you just Uber? And he said to me, "Oh, that's a good idea. I never thought of that." And I said, really? You're just as smart as I am. You own 80 rentals in a hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
Your time your time investment in on this is probably not that great. Your return on your time is probably not that effective right now. And he said, I know, but it's what I say all the time. I know, but I gotta get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I find myself, my biggest struggle and my biggest failing right now is I'm spending such little time at fixing the endemic problems within what I do.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just like I'm trying to buy time. If I can buy some more time, then I can fix my internal processes and really start to address the bigger issues at play. And one I just yesterday I signed over 40 rentals to a management company, which I'm really excited about. And it's
Wow,
like, okay,
congrats.
I'm quantifying some of my time. I am
Yeah.
spending some money here to buy some time. And I know that it's one of the 9-figure net worth guys that I know. He
Mhm.
has 350 rentals right outside Los Angeles. And I talk
Jesus.
about, oh, I have 140 some rental, 140 rentals in Ohio, and it's like where you are in Indiana,
Yeah.
those properties tend not to be worth a whole lot of money.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he's in Western San Bernardino County, and the
Right.
value of his rentals are a little bit bigger than mine. And he said, outsource every single thing you do right now. And he's been saying this to
Right.
me for 4 years. He said, you'll be happier, you'll make more money, you'll be less stressed, and you'll just get so much more work done. And it's taken me, 2 years here to finally
Mhm.
get to the point I can't do this anymore. Even I don't like your business process the most, but here goes. I've tried
Yeah.
training managers, and it's just crazy.
I think time management is definitely the mind killer of an entrepreneur. And it's because, when you start off, like, let's say you're an entrepreneur who wasn't in a fortunate position to become that entrepreneur, right? So you started off from a, middle to lower class family and you work your way up. The problem is you're working every single day and you find very quickly that doing it yourself, learning it yourself is the fastest way to get things done when you start. And
Yeah.
that becomes your motivation. That's your entire
Mm.
driving force is you.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I need to get it done. Then you get to the point that we're talking about, scalability. And
Yeah.
you're still in that mentality and you're trying to have your hands on everything. And eventually you have to realize I have to
Yeah.
let it go. I have to give
Yeah.
it to someone else. And that's terrifying. That's
Yeah.
And
absolutely terrifying.
it's I think one of the elements that makes it the most difficult is your intuition that you can do it better is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've been training to solve these problems for a long time, and your survival was based in solving these problems. So you are the best at it, which means
Yeah.
that to pass it off to someone is to, you know, it's not just a sacrifice of the ego, it's a sacrifice of the task itself to some degree, because at least at
Yeah.
the beginning it will not be at the same quality level. Can I
Yeah.
ask a backstory question? I want to know, is there something that like got you interested in money, or did you feel like you were always wired to enjoy the process of investment and building business and things like that?
So for me, so much of it was the desire to just be able to afford things. That has been just an overwhelming thing. The first business that my brother and I started was a paintball business, and the only reason we started the paintball business was so that we could actually afford to play. Because paintball was, and still to a very large extent, is a very expensive thing. And it was just, let's start a business so we can actually afford to do this thing. Otherwise, we won't be able to do it. And then our first paintball business evolved into this. We're making some pretty good money. And it's one of the things I've mentioned to people. It's why I feel like people need to have a business mindset in everything they do, which I think is a huge thing that people need to develop.
Mhm.
But then you need to go on and you need to learn basic business skills, because I can go back and look at the business that my brother and I ran back in the year 2000, 2001, 2002. And I look at it and I'm like, there were segments of that business that I was involved in at 16 years old that was making $40 to $50 an hour. And as a 35-year-old entrepreneur, I'm like, holy crap, I was making $50 an hour as a teenager
Right.
doing the business. But the problem was, at that point in my life, I didn't know anybody else in business. I didn't know what questions to ask. It's one of those things, like I've said, you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
we were doing with this one segment, and what we were doing was we were buying paintball equipment wholesale from a large distribution company. And the second it came in, we were flipping it on eBay.
Mhm.
And for some reason, that's something that a lot of people didn't know to do. And so there were products that we could buy as many as we wanted for $20, and we could resell them on eBay for 30 to 40. And we could have moved probably $10,000 a week in volume on that, but we were not quantifying anything. We had no clue how to do basic accounting. We had no idea that a spreadsheet existed, and we had, I had Excel on that computer. I never spent the time on figuring out how. One, I didn't know how to use it. Number two, I saw no purpose for it. And I go back and I'm like, we were making $40-50 an hour in that segment of the business. Then we were spending other time on this segment of the business, and we were making $2 an hour. But when it came to time allocation, we were spending all the time, or at least most of the time, on the thing that made us no money, because it seemed like it would be profitable. It was fun, but the thing that was making us money, that was paying the bills, was not getting the proper time allocation. And I know that as time goes on, I've got a lot more effective at that. One example I have in my real estate business is 2 years in, I started looking at our financial diagnostics, and I realized that I was getting cheated on utilities. And then inside the business, I set up a plan and a procedure to fix the utility issuance problem. Just like that, $15,000 I saved the business every year from that point on. And it was, yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. $15,000 I saved. And then there's these other things that I've implemented in the business as a process, and it has saved a lot of money, and I've made the money. And it's just reviewing profit and loss statements on a monthly basis, looking at my top expenses. Is there a way to make this process more efficient? Is there a problem here, or is this a justifiable expense that it just is what it is? And there's things like debt service. I can't get around the mortgages that I have if I want to acquire real estate at the pace I have. But when it comes to things like utilities, I can look at that. When it comes to maintenance expenses, I can look at that. Materials, I can look at that. Labor, I can look at. There's things that I can look at. Insurance, I can call insurance companies. I can get better bids, and then I can look and financially, I can mathematically quantify that. But those are all things that I had to learn, and I kind of reflect on the teenage business that I did way back in the day and failed at. At least I learned some lessons there.
Yeah.
I think that's also growing out of the poverty mindset,
Mhm.
because like I think that the not looking, just simply not looking at the numbers, I think it is part of growing up that way. Like, because so many people around you have a, sensation of fear around the numbers. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up with tremendous anxiety around money. So the
Mhm.
idea of, looking at and truly seeing what my financial situation was quite terrifying. And for
Mhm.
many people in that scenario, it's one of those situations where you're afraid of the truth, shall you say. Um, and and I think if enough people around you have that sensation of I'm afraid to see the truth of the numbers, now you have people around you who habitually don't look at the numbers, and even
Mhm.
if you're not afraid of the financial situation, it becomes the norm of, oh, we just don't look at numbers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's endemic to just an unbelievable number of people.
Well, and that's also true to what you said, Brandon, as to where if you don't know people who run businesses or are successful in their life and everyone's just a 9 to 5 worker at a factory or something, when you do start achieving things, you have no idea that you're even doing it. You
Mhm.
you you tend to devalue your work immensely. I remember me and Josh were talking in a personal call at one point, and Josh was telling me about his coding when he was young, like he was learning to code, and it wasn't until 10, 11 years later where we realized, oh my God, if I had just doubled down on that, I was already at a point I could have been making money. And that's the point. If you don't know someone to
Yep.
tell you you're there, you'll have no idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was, I don't know, when I was 20, I got angry when I realized that, when I was younger, I had learned enough HTML to make money. When I was
Mhm.
25, I got angry when I realized that, at 2021, I had learned enough WordPress to make money, like, and over again, I would, get older and assume that I needed to know more than I did.
Yeah. And
So
there's a
common.
huge there's a huge benefit of just kind of jumping in and figuring it out as you go in. And it's like,
Yes.
I don't know how many messages you get on TikTok, but I know how just I'm probably sitting at 2 to 3,000 messages on TikTok, and it's always what should I do?
Yeah.
And my
Yep.
I'm at a point of copy paste message. Just go do something.
Yes,
I
Something.
don't
because
care
you do
what it
something
is.
and you succeed or fail, and then you learn, and then you do it
Right.
again. And it's
Yeah,
it's the most dangerous situation to do nothing, but we all want to do it because
yeah.
we don't
Because-
want to see what happens when we fail.
Yeah, there's a fear of failure, and there's a fear that's equal to the fear of failure, and that's the fear of hurt. This is going to
Ah,
hurt me when I
yes,
fail, so it's just better that I don't do it. And I think that's just kind of a human reaction to try to
yes,
Oh, yeah.
avoid you getting hurt. But then at
Yeah.
some point, you've got the the potential for hurt has to be lesser than the potential for if I don't do this, something else is going to happen that's worse.
Right.
Um, I meet these guys that sell freaking hot dogs on the street and they make $150,000 a year. And
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity once in a while to talk to somebody like that. I'm like, why'd you do this? And they go, well, I was going to end up homeless.
yeah,
Like, okay.
Yeah.
So, and what? Well, so I took my food stamps down to the store and bought some hot dogs to sell. And that's how it started 10 years ago. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, this is a weird but very intriguing story.
yeah.
Right.
There was a guy, if you get on YouTube, he sold $5 or $10 million worth of potato peelers. And the potato peelers were like $3 a piece, and he sold
Hmm.
1 to 2 million of them. And I can't remember the exact details on his specific story, but
Hmm.
it was just this amazing thing of he had to do it. He had to sell potato peelers,
That
and
was the thing.
he died
Yeah.
a multi millionaire.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I
And
think
that and that's
there's
it
sort of,
again.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I think there's sort of two scenarios. There's there's a sort of desperation, and there's comfort or confidence. And I think both can cause us to be able to move forwards. And I think that some people are way too comfortable, and they need to be desperate, and
Mhm.
then they'll take a step. And then others have been desperate for a long time, and that's resulted in they have had such consistent discomfort that they're drained and kind of empty.
Mhm.
They're just lacking in energy. And for those people, I tend to think in terms of like, okay, well, let's make life as good as it can get, so that we can recover and feel capable of risk.
Mhm.
um, and it's interesting because it seems like it gets the same result depending on the people. But some people, they need to like hit rock bottom and then shoot
Mhm.
off. And then other people will get 2 inches from rock bottom and then stay there for way too long. And
Yeah.
Right.
they need a totally different approach.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier is a great example of it as well, where you're always towing the line between, is this riskier than me taking no risk? And I think that's a lot easier when you don't
Yes.
have an example of what risk can look like. If you've lived a very safe life with a stable income and you've never taken risks, a really risky thing could be like a $100 investment to you, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which anyone trying to be successful, $100 would be nothing, right? I'm willing to throw thousands of my life savings at something if I think
Yeah.
it might be worth it. That's the difference in those risk tolerances that lead you to different levels of success from an early point.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
But
encouraging risk is or
yes,
almost I almost nurturing risk almost is
yeah,
the word that comes to mind, where
Yeah.
it's like a muscle that you build and build and build. And if you risk in ways that tear you down consistently, it doesn't work. But if you
right.
continually risk in ways that get you just a little bit more, either in a better situation or more confident that you can risk without bottoming out again. I mean, you
Right.
can do incredible things. Brand Dominus, I know you have some awesome questions for
Oh
investment
yeah, I
Joel.
was gonna
I
say
wanna I wanna hear one.
we have a perfect segue talking about risk. Also, by the way, my camera's off because it keeps overheating. I said this beforehand,
Ah.
and I am increasingly getting frustrated, but it's fine. So my question about risk is, so you are working, I don't know if it's already done, but last I heard you were working on remodeling the entire laundromat. You're going to
Yes.
renew all of the things
Yeah.
inside of it. Now
Yeah. Everything.
that's a massive undertaking. Now, one of the reasons in your videos you said you were doing that was because of vandalism. A lot of things were either getting broken down or were getting broken down by people. So when we talk about risk, hell, even one of them was booby trapped, right? You said that there was
Yeah.
a knife loaded in one.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can
So
you
stuck a
explain
knife
that? That's
in your thing.
incredible.
Well, the night. I mean, if you get on my YouTube, I kind of go over
Yeah.
all of the insanity with regards to vandalism. But what we're trying to do to deal with the vandalism is completely gut the laundromat, put all new equipment in, do a full facelift, because some of the equipment I have in there has been in there for since 1995.
Right.
That's just how it is. And so with that, we are going to go to an attended laundromat where I'm actually going to go out and find some people or a person that's willing to stay in there through the day and just take people's laundry, get it done, but then they're there for oversight purposes.
Sure.
And with risk quantification, that's very important to me. I feel at this point as if now that I've done it for a year, I can quantify the risk. I feel more that I feel more sufficient in my place with the laundromat, that taking on the debt load, because it's going to be around $100,000 just for the laundromat. I feel like at this point that's justifiable. That level of risk is justifiable. It's going to cost me $1,500 a month for all the money, but I think the reward's going to be there. The vandalism issues, they're costing me probably $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Just even if the equipment was working as intended, the vandalism's causing me between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. So
That's
between those things, I think that'll increase the
Wow.
bottom line pretty substantially. So
Do you think that your increased capability for risk, do you think it comes more from your perception and your increased understanding and skill, or from increased financial buffer, increased like more material reasons to be safe from something going wrong?
I think for me, it's a mix of both. It's just I'm getting more of a financial buffer. I feel way more comfortable with all the YouTube money coming in. The YouTube money is very, very nice, very, very awesome. So that gives me increased buffer, and that's I think I've mentioned it before. That's one of my really big desires, is so I can go and take on these riskier projects without a super huge concern that my business in of itself is going to face just complete collapse. Because having a family and all that stuff, that gives me a very huge pause. It's like, oh, I don't want my family to be out on the streets. And my wife says, my wife says quite a few times, I don't care if we end up on the streets. We end up on the streets. I'm not worried about it. And
Which means that you get to.
Yeah, she doesn't care. She does. You trust me. Everything will be fine. Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And so she has a lot more faith in me than I have in of myself, which is a nice position to.
Exactly.
Hold on.
Yes, it's a wonderful vote of confidence.
Yeah. So that's really, really nice. I can't get that's not working. So.
Yeah. So renewing all of that. Best of luck. By the way, that's going to be. I'm sure that's going to be quite you also said you were getting a manager as well for that location. Something.
Yeah. We're trying to do management for just about everything.
Yeah.
And that's the neat project in of itself. We're doing, I've outsourced a manager for about 40 of my 138.9. When the trailer park's done, there's definitely going to be management at play in there. And then the management stuff's going to be in play. And then I'm trying to train an internal management team to deal with this stuff. I am, I've got all these ideas and desires to do these bigger, high-level projects that I normally couldn't take the risk on without the YouTube money. I really have the desire to build a house from the ground up. I've never seen anybody build a house for the purpose of renting it out. I've seen people renovate houses for the purpose of renting them out. I've seen people build houses on YouTube just to live in. I've never seen anybody do a building new development just for the purpose of renting it out. I've never seen, so far have not seen anybody go from start to finish for Airbnb. I've never seen anybody do some of these more in-depth finance type stuff. I've never seen anybody go. This is kind of one of the secret things I've got going on. I have a friend that's trying to buy a rundown factory, a factory that actually makes stuff. And he has asked me to come on board with his management team, kind of like as a board member type deal, to see if we can resurrect a factory in Southern Ohio that makes neat stuff. And so I said, I will help you. I will help you with everything that I have. I just want to showcase the actual numbers. Because I get a lot of people and they say, I've never seen anybody actually talk about how much money a laundromat makes. I've never seen anybody talk about what's the cost for, and it has nothing to do with the business. How much does a plastic injection molding facility cost to run? How much does a plastic widget cost? For years here in my town, the little multifunction button that sits on iPhones and iPads, the little center button, that coating is done in my town. They send the wiring harnesses out of Michigan. They come down here on trains. They offload them on the trains. They put them in this machine. They run them through the machine. I've been told it costs less than 1/2 of a cent to do that coating on the iPhone. Then they package it up and then they ship them out to California. They do another assembly process and then they ship them over to China for final assembly and mating with the boards and things of that nature. And I've always thought, well, how much would it cost to run a factory? How much would it cost to do something like that? Because it's, in my opinion, there's all these factories, or at least what I see here in Southern Ohio, there's all these factories and businesses that are being run by baby boomers and then even some of the World War II generation. And they have to get rid of those businesses. And at least here in Southern Ohio, a lot of those companies have just been shuttered. I run into a lot of like really neat. There's a factory that made wood flooring. It's Timberwolf, and they're a really big brand. They're carried at Lowe's. They're carried at Home Depot, Menards, those kinds of places. One of the big factories was in Southern Ohio. They just closed down. Had nothing to do with the profit margin. Had nothing to do with the viability of the business. The guy got tired and said, I don't want the money anymore. And he could not find a freaking soul in that entire county to just come in and take the factory over.
Yeah,
and so we have this complaint and this issue with people saying, oh, these factories are getting shut down. Talking to the factory managers and the factory owners, people don't want them. And I'm working with this guy on the books for this factory. Back in 2006, they were bringing in $6.5 million a year in product sales. Their net was between $1.2 and $1.3 million. If my friend gets the factory, he's getting it for $20,000 down, and the seller's financing $380,000. Factory, real estate, business name, the whole kit and caboodle, $400K. And he's taking on this risk to buy a factory that last year, the sales in 05, 06 was their high water mark at $6.5 million in revenue. Last year, the sales were $120,000 making the same product. And the sales guy died. One of the technical operators died. One of the truck drivers died. All the people that were passionate about the project, that knew what they were doing, died, and all we have left is the forklift driver or the die press operator. And my buddy's like, I can run these machines. I can hire to do the people. I said, well, you give a couple people $100,000 a year in Southern Ohio, you'll probably get done whatever you need done. It's one of those things where it's just like, I want to showcase this is what's happening in the world. And if you are a millennial or a Gen Z, you have the opportunity to go out and take some of this wealth that's sitting out there literally just falling apart. Those factories have had value. The value is depreciating a little every year because people are losing their passion and their desire to get stuff done.
Right?
So I agree. There's a unsustainable sort of trend at the moment. And it's so odd because entrepreneurship is cool right now, right? Like it's in the media, it's in the world, it's entrepreneurship is cool. But at the same time, there's this sort of narrative of but we don't make things. Making things is inefficient. So we don't make things. We just use ones and zeros. And it's like that only lasts so long, and then there aren't things anymore. Now we have a problem. And it's I think it could be much easier for us to move towards that than we realize.
And I want to address a question that's coming in on your chat, not my chat. And I want to go into this factory because I love the stupid factory thing. It makes a product cannot be imported from China. It cannot be imported from India because it is the way that it's packaged. It would be akin to importing, let's say, potatoes from. Oh my goodness! Someone's calling me on Google Voice. That's weird. Oh. As long as that house isn't on fire, we'll be okay. So like it's a bulk product. It's not worth a lot of money. So importing it and paying for shipping doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The main product, my buddy made 5 phone calls and figured out how to get the primary ingredient in the product for free. All he has to do is drive to a downline company show up with semis, and just pick it up with a bobcat or a caterpillar or whatever. So there's no competition from China and India. It's technically not possible. The input costs are almost non-negligible. It comes down to the real estate, the equipment to actually manufacture the products, and then the knowledge. From my perspective, 80% of the business is up here. It's mental. It's not even physical. It's connecting the dots between product suppliers, primary feedstocks, logistics as far as shipping it from one of the places he talked to was in West Virginia, transporting it to Southern Ohio, and then selling it to the large distribution facilities downstream in Indianapolis. He's got a product purchaser in Cleveland and one in Cincinnati. So all the whole thing is just up here in his mind. My buddy's 36 years old, and to me, it's like a home run. And he is doing everything within his power to get the business off the ground, get it financed, get local banks on board, which they would have all been sold on this idea with the exception of coronavirus, because now they're scared to death. A lot of the local lenders are just kind of doing it. So even though this business is a home run, there's minimal input, minimal competition from China foreign sources, it's still a difficult thing to get all the pieces to work together. Especially for someone like him that has never dealt with bank finance. They've never done with investors. They've never, this was the first business plan he'd ever done. He's never done an in-depth spreadsheet where he can do cost segregation and he can punch in, I've bought 50 semi-loads of product this week. We've shipped it in. This is my cost per truckload. The dies are XYZ cost, and then he depreciates it and includes debt service and all this stuff. I only have one camera here, Will. So
back to looking at the numbers.
Yeah. There is a great YouTube channel called Company Man, and I assume a lot of people are familiar with this channel. And he goes through one of his series is the rise and fall of companies, going through their history, their public earnings to talk about how they've done. And one of the biggest things, if you watch those videos, to just get a brief summary of large companies, is that the changing of hands, right? CEO to CEO makes a massive difference, right? Yeah. This isn't like the red tape we see in like politics where, passing the guard, it takes a long time to get changes through. Not in a company, right? A CEO comes in and a lot of shit can get done very quickly and really out of left field, even when you don't expect it. So, your friend taking this on, so long as the vision is there and the actual business model lines up to be profitable, this is the main difference from going from a 6.5 year to a 100,000 year, as that company did. Yeah. So I definitely think it's feasible. And it's also about the risk. I'm sure that company probably didn't change much of how they operated that whole time. And as the world changed, they probably didn't.
Yeah, that's a lot of those companies haven't been just not innovated, but just updated. I don't know. I always laugh when I think about the story of the Boring Company that Elon Musk did. And it's like he bought an ordinary boring machine and then just put new things on it. And then all of a sudden he had the most innovative boring company on earth. I mean, and yes, he had brilliant people working on it, of course. But that concept, I think, applies to a ton of businesses where there's a generation gap that for people to come in on is a different generation and be willing to get on the ground with those projects. Just updating to the modern world can turn into an edge.
Yes. And that's where I think I love the fact that a lot of people are getting interested in entrepreneurship, getting in, the hustle mindset. To me, it makes me so happy and so excited of what can happen in the future. But the thing that concerns me just a lot, and it's what I want to do with my social media, one of the big lofty goals out there is to really try and get people motivated into the sense of, okay, this is a longer term project. I also have to learn connected fields And then, my struggle, I need to figure out how to use the human resources here to achieve these goals. Elon Musk is one of my absolute biggest heroes. And, I follow all the companies he does. And, I watched Battery Day, which was on my birthday this year. And Elon was going, one of the things he said, and I'm like, did anybody hear him say that? And I talked to all these people and they said, I don't know, what was he talking about? He said, he had this quote, and I'm sure I'm butchering it at this point. He said, we're at a point with climate change, global warming, energy, the future of energy on the globe, where no government can solve it, and unlimited amounts of money cannot solve the problem either. The only people that can solve this essentially are business people and engineers.
Yep.
And I've asked all these people, I said, did you hear that? Did you pay attention to that? Well, I don't understand. He's talking about, I have some friends that are like, he's talking about global warming. So I shut it off. And then I asked that same question to another person today, and they said, he's a right winger. I'm not going to listen to him either. And I said, do you understand that these kinds of problems that are facing humanity are only going to be solved when you start spending time on figuring out all of the connected fields that have to be addressed to solve the issue? And
Yes.
it's like, I was reading about their Maxwell energy patent and how they're making the tabless 4850 battery. It's like a freaking pop can, like one of those 8-ounce.
It's incredibly. Oh my God.
Yeah, the drink can. It's a fat little round cell that's tabless. And I was someone was telling me about the tabless technology that they purchased the patent off for Maxwell, and essentially it's a battery that doesn't heat up. And it's like, why did it take this freaking one guy to figure this out? Because heat transfer and heat issues are a 20 to 30 year insurmountable problem that they can't solve with batteries. So they're just going to fix it with running piping through the batteries and active cooling arrays. And that adds weight and obscene cost to the vehicle. And not only did this one guy figure out how to address the heat issue, he's also figured out a way to do it for, I think they said they're going to drop the cost from $200 per kilowatt hour of storage. The first stage is going to be 75. Second stage is going to be 50. The third stage is like $35 a kilowatt hour. And they said, then we're going to stick there. And
Right.
You start figuring out the math on that. And it's like, oh, this is a revolutionary step in the entire energy of the future that one guy put it all together.
Yeah.
And
I meant to make a video about Battery Day, and I still might do it. And there's an interesting thing about what went on there is a lot of people said that it was a flop.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because of the
oh
stock.
yeah, there was
That's
no big
why.
hype, right? It's a flop, therefore it's a
Yeah.
flop. But
Mm.
but it's and I was very confused at first. I'm like,
Yeah.
did I miss something? Did we not just talk about moving the buck forward on so many
Battery
levels?
Day, yeah, Battery Day historically might be looked at as one of the most important turning points for energy
Mm.
solutions in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
Yes, but
He-
we're so short term that
Yeah, we are. Oh,
it's there's the look at it
Two
as
orders
it's a flop.
2 orders of magnitude is what he is talking about proposing within a 10 to 15 year period. 2 orders of magnitude.
It's
And that just went
absurd.
over
And you
everybody's head.
know he is serious about his orders of magnitude.
Yes.
He is
The,
serious.
and the
Yes.
stock dropped the next day, and I put
Yeah.
several grand more into Tesla stock. I
Yeah.
was like, this
Yeah.
shows me the intelligence of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can put my money where my mouth is, and I can throw more cash into Tesla. So
Yeah, but that goes back to what you were saying about encouraging the long-term game. Because I think that people that have the positive view of the long-term game, they looked at that and it made sense to them. And people that don't have that mentality, they thought it was a flop. And on the same note, are you interested in, so you were talking about building a house for renting. or something along those lines. Are you interested in like innovative construction techniques? Are you
Oh,
thinking of toying with that kind of stuff?
absolutely. I got a cousin, and he has a master's in engineering,
Ah,
and his big. I don't know if you many of you guys know who Matt Risinger is, but he comes up with some really. I really like Matt Risinger because I talk to all these people and they're sending me videos of 3D printed houses, and I tell them this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Well, why? Have you ever built a house before? Well, no. Do you know how houses are made? No. I said, you're watching a clickbaity YouTube video on a 3D printer. I said, this is not
yeah.
how it is. Well, you think you can do better? I said, I guarantee I can do better. I can guarantee I can do better. And I said, when I come out with my video, I said, I'm going to show you how stupid 3D printed houses are. And like, oh, you can do that. I'm like, yeah, but I got to get time. I got to get stuff outsourced.
Right.
So I've got this concept. I've got it rendered on Google SketchUp. I did some Twitch live streams on it, and it's been totally deleted. The linchpin is it's solar powered, homemade battery bank. We're going to reprocess rainwater with reverse osmosis, and it's going to cut the cost of the house by 40%. And just in between that stuff, we go from a lofty goal to, hey, Brandon's going to make 30% ROI on this per year. And then, because, we're exceeding the S&P 500 by quite a bit, and I can showcase it on YouTube and TikTok and all these different things. And it's like, oh, wow. So now there's a financial viability. And it's why I like Elon Musk so much, because everything he talks about, he's like, we're going to go to Mars, and here's how it's going to make everybody rich. We're going to build the world's most green vehicle, and all my investors are going to make filthy amounts of money because we're going to put Ford and GM bankrupt. Hey guys, we're going to make the world's cheapest rocket, and everybody's going to get rich because we're going to piggyback worldwide internet on it. We're going to put all the telecom companies under.
Right.
Hey guys, we're going to build underground tunnels, and we're going to alleviate all the traffic in LA, and everybody that buys my Tesla stock is going to see a bunch of money on it. So
Right.
Elon is addressing this stuff, and one of the key aspects isn't the lofty goal that solves mankind's problems. It's this is going to provide substantial benefit to you and your children financially,
It works
because
with the psychology.
I'm providing huge value in
Yes.
this
Yeah.
thing. And it's
That's
like
something. Oh boy, that goes back in one of your videos you put out fairly recently. You were saying how I afforded a free laundromat, and that's by renting the homes above it. What Elon Musk is doing is exactly pretty much what you did. You took on a debt because you probably didn't have renters when you first bought that laundromat. So you had a debt. Well, I know you had an investor, but
they were rented out.
Yeah. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they've stated.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
The kids upstairs. One tenant has been there the entire time I've had the laundromat. The second tenant just moved out 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah. So
They stayed through the switch. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
They kind of like.
One of the things that Elon does is like he took on a good amount of debt starting up SpaceX and Tesla and everything. So much so that I believe at one point he was willing to put up his house. He almost had to because they were so far almost in the red. But the point was he knew that one day he would launch Starlink. And that would pay for SpaceX. Not totally, but over the course of a 20-year investment, it would be paid off. Or Tesla, the supercharging network, would make up a huge amount of that deficit when they start charging for that. And also their in-car streaming services and their full self-driving packages. All of these just software things that make them extreme amounts of money. And it's always about whatever you're building. This is what Elon Musk has done to kind of change the world of entrepreneurship and business, is that whatever you build should end up paying for itself as opposed to accruing debt. They don't do advertising. You know how much money they save from not spending a cent on advertising? Oh my Lord.
Yes, and one of your people asked, wasn't SpaceX one failed launch away from insolvency at some point? And that's to an extent true, because I loved watching that last stream, because it's like Elon just breaks down and he just obliterates himself crying because the last launch worked. They had 4 out of whatever that place is in the Pacific Ocean on the little island. Is it
Mhm.
Cod? It starts with K. That
don't remember.
Codjoween, or I don't know. My Ohio pacing on
Sure.
words won't work. But so, in my opinion, kind of doing a post-mortem analysis on that, I think they could have got away with 2 more launches. But he would have had to sold the farm as far as any options go and everything on that, because their first 3 launches, launch number 3, the reason it failed was so stupid, because they did not calculate residual thrust from the first stage on the rocket. And in that case, it's like, oh gosh, that's a weird little thing. And they just undercut the first stage residual thrust by it was like 2%. If they would have factored in half of that difference from the residual thrust on the first stage, because you can't wind the turbo pumps down, and there's always this weird margin of safety, margin of error on your first stage. The turbo pumps won't shut off automatically. There's a little bit of extra thrust there. So that third stage, the third launch anomaly, was such a weird little thing. From my perspective, he could have probably carried himself out on that. So
It's a
Yeah.
wild thing that they've done.
yeah.
Do you mind if I switch directions? I'm just curious about this question for you. It's more to open the conversation for it, but because it's partially visible in just what you do. But would you rather scale one thing really big, or would you rather approach a lot of different things? What's your preference there, and why is that?
I like doing a lot of different things because I don't get bored.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There's
I like that.
there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, my next question I have to ask you, sir, is can you tell us about the Minecraft server?
Sure. That is the craziest, weirdest, most drama-filled thing that takes place next to the trailer park. The drama and the dealings with the Minecraft server are equal to the trailer park.
Wow.
There has been so much fraud and insanity there. Accusations of drug. I mean, there is this whole backstage drama thing that could go on with the Minecraft server. My
Give us
intention
just
was
the lay down of what is it? What's going on in terms of like what you've set up?
okay. So all Brandon ever wants in life, I like video games, like every other adult male that's in his mid-30s. I like video games. There's no easy way around it.
World.
Yeah, I play RimWorld. I played Dwarf Fortress, which is the nerdiest game in all creation. Minecraft. I had Minecraft when it was $5 for PC, the original Java version. So I think I have the sales receipt from like 09
Yep.
10ish on Minecraft. I've been playing Minecraft forever. I enjoy it, and I like the appeal, the fact that there's a bunch of 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids, 13 years old, 15-year-old kids playing Minecraft, because I look at it, I'm like, it's a building game, and you can teach finance on it. And I said, would it be nice if I could take some of my YouTube fame, some of my brand appeal, set up a Minecraft server? And we've got I had a guy custom code a stock, and here's a segue to the drama. The Minecraft server is still running. We had a question on Twitch. We had a guy custom code me an app that connects to the stock market, and you can use your Minecraft dollars to virtually buy stocks, get dividends that affect your Minecraft virtual account in your town. You can buy and sell stocks. You get jobs in it, so you can work and grow food, and you can liquidate it inside the game, and you make money, and you can earn interest. You can buy stocks with it. And what I want is, because there was this game back in the late 90s called Capitalism, where you built factories and you sold stuff inside the game. And I was like, man, it'd be so cool if we could kind of create that atmosphere online. I could use some of my brand appeal for it. And it's like, my YouTube following is kind of less engaged now than it was. My TikTok following has definitely supplanted that. But it's like I mentioned on Discord last January, February, I'd like to do a Minecraft server. And it's like, There's 36 people that have an interest in working on it. It's like, cool. I won't have to touch this. I don't understand the Minecraft coding, nor do I desire to. I want to outsource this whole project. I want to write a document that says this is where we go. Okay, Brandon, it's going to cost you $2,000 to get this server up and running. I don't think so, but okay, whatever. Whatever. I'll write you guys a check for $2,000. Okay. 3 weeks later, Brandon, I think he's spending on drugs. Like, okay. I'm like, you have Minecraft kid that's spending on drugs. I think he's spending on drugs in a party. And it evolved into Brandon, the guy that's doing the server. I think he's trying to kill me.
What?
What?
How did it get there?
Oh yeah, you should see the screenshots I have. So we've got this Minecraft thing, and it's like, this is a children's game, guys. We're trying to teach people how to save money. Brandon, your Minecraft guy has installed cameras in my house, and he is watching me. What?
What? This sounds like. Okay.
We're giving you the Reader's Digest version of the Minecraft server.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh my gosh. And it was like, I'm like, why is this going on? Within 3 months of me starting, and they're like, Brandon, do you know how much money your Minecraft server made the first month? I'm like, no. Like, I don't care. I told you guys, whatever money comes in, figure out a way to reinvest it. Like, Brandon, the first month they had the Minecraft server up, they made $2,500. I'm like, cool. That's nice. I made a server. I sponsored a server that made $2,500 the first month, and they're like, and they went on a power trip because you're one of the most profitable servers they've ever seen. I'm like, well, that's cool. Do you really have to threaten people to install cameras in their house? But Brandon, so-and-so was watching me through the keyhole in my door. I'm like, no, let's not ascribe conspiracy theories to something that meth usage can address. And they're like, oh, wow, Brandon, this makes a lot of sense. So it's like, so now we have this Minecraft server. It's still sitting on there with the IP. You wouldn't know it if you logged in. There's probably a couple Romanians on there doing who knows what. But it's like, I had more grief over the Minecraft server and the craziness. It's like, oh, we should do a YouTube series just on the craziness. Well, I don't want anybody to show up at my house and threaten me again. But not that happened. That was a joke.
Right.
That's nuts.
Someone. It's insanity. Someone on the project team went to another person on the project team, and they said, I bought you a Greyhound bus ticket. You need to leave. I've packed your bags. You're no longer a part of the Minecraft team. It's the level of craziness inside of a video game that looks to be profitable like Minecraft it's just the amount of drama is just absurd. And I think,
still profitable?
This is great material. Is it still profitable? Probably not the past 2 months. I haven't been promoting it. They're going to go through a full server reset, try to fix some of the endemic issues. The guy or two that I have on it now seems to be okay. They seem to be quality. I don't think they're on drugs. I don't think they're stealing money.
But obviously, I guess
so it was the people that were
on Minecraft server.
Sorry. So it's the people that were running it that kind of set this off, or where did it spring from that it got twisted? So
it's just I don't want to deal with the server. I don't want to deal with the code. You guys figure it out. I've got a budget of $2,000. You guys go and make the nicest economic server that you can make for $2,000. And if you guys want to monetize it, that's fine. But there needs to be checks and balances inside the monetization. It should not be play to win ever, because that's wrong. But if people want to pay for aesthetic ponies inside the game and you can use it to grow the server, more power to you. I don't care. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, holy crap, the server's making a lot of money. We just sold $125 VIP passes within like 3 weeks in the first month. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's nice. Because these people believe in your server. And then it became this thing. Oh, we fired half the mod team. Why? Because they thought they deserved some money. And it's like, well, I told you guys, I'm getting promo material. I've got Ridge wallets. I will mail the Minecraft mod team some free wallets once in a while. Can we do this? Well, nope. I fired them. Okay, that's weird. Oh, I got bad news again, Brandon. Like, well, bad news. What's the bad news? Oh, they competed up with a Minecraft server. They're DOSing your server, trying to take people from your server and put it on their server.
What were the
Oh,
different ways that
oh.
the server made money?
Yeah, they were angry. The server would made money. They felt because they were on the mod team, they were entitled to some money from the VIP passes. They got angry, so they made their own server. They started leeching users off my server. We banned their IP addresses, so then they hired a botnet to come back to my server and DDoS it and knock it off the internet for 3 weeks
Wow.
or whatever.
Wow. Sorry, that's insane. The question, I'm glad you answered it that way. But the question I was asking was, what were the different monetization paths that you had for Minecraft? Like, what were and were they all your plan? Because I know that you had a framework for how it was going to be to educate and finance. What were the different ways that it made money?
Just VIP passes. That was my primary intention. But then my goal was, there's a game, I'm sure, if everybody's nerdy like me, there was/is a game called Eve. And Eve has such a neat economy. And I said, it would be so cool that we get a thriving Minecraft economy. So then I could start doing Minecraft videos based on the Minecraft economy and kind of do lessons on YouTube, maybe a second channel or whatever, so that we can make even more money off of the Minecraft server, because I can get decent monetization on YouTube videos, and then it'll just be a self-sustaining growth cycle. But the VIP passes that were $25 a piece, those came out kind of the blue, and we sold 100 of them in the first month ish. Then there were some aesthetic things. Hey, you can buy a rainbow pony or whatever as a mount on the Minecraft server. Oh, we sold a couple $100 worth of those. And then there's been several different things in the Minecraft servers that were just one-off purchases, loot boxes, things that were just aesthetic boosts. You could buy a global server boost that would increase everybody's experience points and the jobs that they had. Those were like 30-minute boosts. And man, we went one full day where someone kept replenishing the experience boost on the server. So we went like one full day, on one full real life day, which is I don't know how many Minecraft days, where everybody got double experience and all that kind of stuff.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's wild.
Something that's always been ever since Minecraft. So I'm on the same boat as you. I've been playing Minecraft since 2009. Or at least I was aware of it at minimum. Been playing for an extremely long time. And I remember before multiplayer was even a thing, when you would play the game, one of the biggest dreams that me and my brother had about Minecraft was the ability to create a working, living world in that game, right? Like an actual, because Minecraft is the perfect game to do something like that. Just ultimate reign to create a perfect economy, or, like a civilization online. And surprisingly, this having an online economy in Minecraft has turned out almost the exact same way that it does in the real world.
Yeah. It's no different than any sort of business that you start. And it's just virtual. And then there's this level of meanness and aggravation and downright evil that the online world can take. We're seeing it, in my opinion, with the political atmosphere, with Facebook, with social media. It's so easy to be just evil and borderline violent to somebody that you've never met before. It's why I like face-to-face businesses and offline businesses so much, because you at least get to have a one-on-one conversation with people. And that isn't to dig anything with online relationships and networking and communication, but I always see that kind of as a bridge to the offline world, and we can boost those relationships with online world. The online stuff should never be the end game, the end role. It should just be a tool to get to where we want for our individual lives. Because if we think about it, that's where we're trying to go. Is we're trying to make money. We're trying to do these things to benefit our offline life, as opposed to online.
That's such an important perspective, because you can run an online business, and that's phenomenal. But look at like Amazon. The minute that they can start buying physical locations like the Whole Foods or the ghost stores, those things, like, the point is let's say back in the day you were on Second Life and you used to play guitar on the street corner through your mic to make money. You took
Yeah.
that money and you threw it into an X.com or a PayPal account, right?
Mhm.
And you spend it on real world things. The money you make online is always going to translate back to the real world. You're always going to
Yes.
spend that money on things for your material life. So if you can just move it to the material world, to actual
Yeah.
things, it's so much better. Like you can, and this is something about the human mind that just gets me again and again. I think I've talked to Josh about this. There is something incommunicable to our brains about having a virtual call. Because although all of us know that there are real people on the other side of this video call, like just evolutionarily, the idea that you are a tangible, actual person is not, it doesn't click, I don't think, until you meet someone. There is
Yes.
a real disconnect, and that really affects business. You know how different people act on an online business meeting than a real life business meeting? It is
Oh, yeah.
incredible how
Yeah.
weird it is, that disconnect.
Yeah.
I think
And
there's a tie between that and how we like to think that we're logical beings.
Mhm.
We like to think that we're practical and our thinking minds are the majority of us, when that's so far from the case. It's we're we're
Right.
mostly emotional beings, and
Mhm.
I think that the internet world, it taps into the best that our logical mind can be, and
Yeah.
it leverages it in the most
Mhm.
powerful way. So
Mhm.
it reinforces the concept that, oh yes, I am my thinking mind. But then in that process, we forget about all the rest.
Right.
And I think that it's a, I don't know if I even want to call it a problem, because
Mhm.
it's a really, the internet is wonderful. It's a valuable thing. So I don't want to call it a problem, but it is a thing that it has a sort of reinforcing type behavior, where if you go on the internet and you use your mind to solve a problem on the internet, then you start to put more emphasis on your logical mental capacity, and that
Mhm.
becomes
Right.
more of your reality. And people
Right.
that can, people that feel like they live on the internet, a lot of times we're very detached from our emotions and our body and
Yeah.
our day-to-day lives. And I think that we're missing, the other 90% of us when we do that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
Yep.
it's really beautiful to bring that back to the rest of your life, and use the logical mind, and use the money made online, and use the
Yeah.
connections made online to reinforce the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's going back to talking about the emotional logical parts of us. I mean, that's entrepreneurship. You know, how many decisions all of us have had to make in that journey of entrepreneurship that completely go against everything, at least I don't want to say ethically, but at least it hurts our feelings to an extent to have to do those things. Like the amount of times I've had to be kind of the stick in the mud to someone
Mhm.
because just at the end of the day, it's a bottom line issue. Like I can't do anything about it. Like you don't ever want to do that, but that's where the disconnect of real life and online is kind of bad. Online, you
Mhm.
know how easy it is to fire someone or to move on from that person, but if you know
Oh
them
Yep.
yeah.
and you've worked with them, oh my
Yes.
god, it's incredibly difficult. But if you can't make those decisions, you can't be in that world. And
Yeah.
that's the long and the short. If you're way too nice, you're going to get pushed around, but if you're way too mean, you're not going to get the productivity you need. You have to
Yep.
strike that balance between what is the logical amount of emotion that I can have. And
Yeah.
that's such a tug and pull.
Yeah.
It's incredibly
And
difficult.
yes, and everybody needs to find that balance, and you got to get those kinds of people. From what I'm seeing, you have to make sure those kinds of people are in your life to help kind of counterbalance
Mhm.
you on the hey. And that's kind of for me going to be the legacy of my life with coronavirus, because a lot of these
Mhm.
people that was meeting on a weekly basis or every other week, business mentors, things like that. It's like, oh, we're not meeting anymore. I've lost the counterbalance to those kinds of relationships and those kinds of situations.
Right.
Um, and it's like, man, I'm way too nice right now, and I need to be.
Right.
need to be way meaner than I
Yeah.
am, because I'm a nice, fun-loving guy that cares about people, and I do care about people. But then there's a point that I get to very easy where I'm too nice, where I am the and I have these conversations, and they're already pre-programmed in my mind. Let me talk to you about Miss Janet. She's a nice, sweet, elderly lady that lives in my town. She's lived in the same house since 1979. She didn't remember how long she's lived there till I pulled her lease record from my local county administration office. Her husband died in 1976 as a post office worker, and she's been living in the same house on government assistance her entire, since 1979, which is older than me. You know what? When I talked to her, she informed me that I'm her seventh landlord. 4 of them have gone bankrupt. 3 of them just got tired. You know what? The actions and the choices that you are making here are very poor, and they're going to have an impact on my business and Miss Janet's livelihood. So here's your eviction notice. And,
Right.
yeah, and it's like, so if I am balanced and if I'm at a point in my life where I remember and I remind myself I'm the one in charge, I'm the one making the decisions, I have that mental clarity to go through and remind myself of Miss Janet's story, so I make the decision and put the rubber to where the road is, and
Right.
run the business as efficient as I know it needs to be. But then I find that there's often a pull from other people. Well, can't you need to help me out here, Brandon? We need to do this. We need to do that. And I'm hoping, and my desire is, and I think I've done an okay job on my YouTube channel. If someone was to go and binge all my content, where they would see, oh, Brandon rented this house to another crack addict. Well, that's not the case. Brandon bought a house with a crack addict in it, and I eventually had to evict him. It only took me a year. And
Right.
I find that I have to have this balance in my life, but then I also have to make sure I'm in between being the mean old man landlord guy and the nice caring gentleman that wants you to succeed. But then I have to, people have to understand that I'm a place of authority, and I'm trying to make the best decision possible, even in their stead. I'm not trying to be this mean guy. I'm just trying to run a profitable business that keeps people employed and keeps food on my table. And if I lose sight of either of those things, it's like going back to the mean boss. Things can get really terrible really quick. So
Yep.
Yes, remembering the story of the old lady in the house is, uh, I think that's incredibly useful. It's like a lot of us that tend towards, caring a lot, wanting to help.
Mhm.
We if the only way to switch us to be tough, to draw a hard line, to be, occasionally mean in the sense of, it's not really mean, but we have to, tap into that to
Yes.
get what needs to be done, is we have to do it for other people. And we have to go, okay, like, I can't, draw this line, but I can draw the line for someone else. And
Mhm.
and when we tap into that and remember it, like you said, it's like, I'm not drawing the line necessarily for me, I'm drawing the line for them. And I
Yeah.
find, because I struggle with the same thing, and I find that's helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I ask you one more question and Brandon ask you one more question,
Yep.
and then after that we take a look at some of the comments and questions and see if we can answer some of those. How's
Sure.
that sound? Okay, all right. And Brandon, Brandominus, while we're doing this, come up with a master plan for how we're gonna sort through the questions.
Oh
How's that sound?
boy. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. So, I mean, this is sort of, along the lines of everything we've been talking about. Just like, what do you think are some of the biggest ways that your views on money have shifted as you've moved from where you were to where you are now? Because you're in a totally different situation, and you approach things totally differently. You have different questions pop into your mind when you solve a problem. What do you feel were some of the like biggest shifts in how you view money now versus before?
Is that for him or for me?
For you. Investment joy.
Okay. No, because you said that and it's got out. The big thing is, I know for me, the money that I'm making now at this point, it's nice because it builds security. But I see money as time goes on. I see money much more as the reward for bringing a product or a service to the market that other people see value in. Money, the value of money is quantified in the value that you bring to other people. And so I have a real hard push and pull to quantify the value that I'm bringing to other people. And by that, I mean, I look at somebody, let's say, I don't know if you guys watch Meet Kevin.
I actually watched quite a few of his.
He's a
Yeah,
nice
I think I've heard of him.
I like him. And he has one of the most perfectly monetized YouTube channels in all creation.
Yes, he does.
If the numbers I heard right, he's made about between $12 and $16 million this year off YouTube.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
But it's not just the YouTube ads, it's upsells and products and all these things. And he has this deal and he said, let's do a 1-hour conference call and I'll record it with my camera for your records. It's only $29.95. $3,000 an hour is what he quantifies his time at. And I look at myself and I'm like, man, I'd do a lot for $5. I would, I'll do conference calls all the time for free. And it's like, I've done a conference call for an hour before, an hour and a half. I'm sure I could have done something more productive, but it seems kind of fun. And, I have a difficult time trying to quantify what I do, the value it brings to other people, and then justify within my own mind, okay, what am I going to spend this money on? Because I want to do something productive with my money. I want to use my money for a greater purpose. And I just have this big push and pull at this stage where I'm like, man, I've got to figure out, where is my overwhelming life goal and how much does it cost? So then I can figure out how long it's going to take for me to get there. That's kind of like my big push and pull at this point.
Yeah.
Cool.
So my final question before we go to the chat is going to be, when we talk about accruing debt, taking on things that are going to take you a while to pay back. I mean, there's no way to just jump in for free for a lot of opportunities. What is, in your mind, the best way to take on debt in the safest way possible and make it back as fast as possible?
So like U.S. contract law is a very wonderful thing, and there are plenty of forms of debt that you can take on where you have no obligations to it whatsoever. Sure, you're going to pay through the nose on interest, but of the $1.5 million I'm in debt, I haven't personally signed on over $1 million of it. So I had this question at lunch today. They're like, so what happens to Brandon when Brandon dies? I said, well, my wife gets $1 million life insurance check from ladderlife.com. And then she can make a decision. Does she just want to declare, does she want my properties and all that debt to just kind of disappear? She has the option of doing that because I don't have personal obligations under most of those loans. And one of the people there is like, holy crap, how'd you do that? And I was like, well, I built value to the things that I was doing investment wise. I got an investor / partner to consent to it. And I'm not personally liable for it. So in those situations, I look at the risk and I'm like, the risk ain't too bad. I can, I don't even have to declare bankruptcy. I just have to give some paper, sign some quick claim deeds and hand them back to the investor and say, good luck, guys. And I'm in that position, so that quantifies the debt for me, a lot of the debt issues. But then again, I try and engineer on my own investments situations where I'm like, we could get really bad really quick, and I would be fine. Sure. It's like with coronavirus, I meet these people that are so over-levered, let's say for Airbnb. They do master lease. They do heavy master leases on their Airbnbs in high cost of living areas. They go and they take a $5,000 a month apartment. They lease it from a landlord. And then in their own math cycle, they can release the house on a daily rate equal to $10,000 a month after their primary call or their servicing costs are like cleaning and things like that. And but they've signed a 1-year lease with a landlord, and that's a position I would just not get myself into because
Yeah, that'd
I've
make
talked
me
to
nervous in the middle of a boom.
yeah. And I've talked to people and I'm like, well, what happens if they ban Airbnb in your town? That will never happen. Well, they did in Columbus, Ohio. That's not the most anti-business place in the world. Well, I'm not worried about that. And then we had coronavirus. And I mentioned it today. I had a pretty cool deal set up with Airbnb's influencer program pre-coronavirus. I was going to do a really cool Airbnb development series, do a ground up Airbnb. They were going to pay me a nice, some nice money to do it. And then all of a sudden I get a call from their brand development guy a week later and they're like, we're all getting fired. I was like, how do we go talking from these big numbers to where you don't have a job? This. And I'm like, this is crazy because I can lose half of my rental income and I can still stay afloat. I don't have to be cleaning gutters. And then I talk to people like, well, how do you get that? And I'm like, well, I tried not to overload on debt. I tried to build value to the properties in a cheap way. And, even then, I have this cool relationship with a lot of my investors where when we had the quarantine in Ohio, I want to say half of my investors called right off the bat and were like, Brandon, if you needed to stop paying us money for 6 months or 3 months or whatever they offered, just call us, let us know before the business gets in trouble.
Right.
We will go on a 6-month furlough on payments. I'm like, nope. And I haven't had to do that at all with any of my investors. I made a bonus payment to one during coronavirus as of today. And it's like one of those things where I'm like, I tried to prepare for this. And, in the grand scheme of business, these things have happened before. People say, well, we've never had a pandemic before. And I'm like, yeah, we had the Spanish flu. That happened. They filled up a theater in Southern Ohio to the ceiling with 9,000 dead bodies. That happened, and I can show you the physical place that happened down there because the theater's still there. It was the only place in Southern Ohio with an air conditioning system, and they used it as an impromptu morgue. It was bad. We had the Great Depression. We had World War II where rents got frozen. We've had we had race riots back in Columbus in 68, 69. I met people that were participating in those on various aspects of them. I'm like, we've gone through some scary times before. And, everybody says, if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I'm like, I can look at history in my real estate market and in business and what I see happen. I can try and make plans for those. And, one of the ways we prevent that's over-levering ourselves and saying, well, what happens if income gets cut 30%? Well, Brandon's got to work more hours in the week, which is exactly what's happened to me. But is the business at risk of going under? No, it's not, because I can lose a lot more money and I'll still do okay.
Yeah. That's coming back to the one of the biggest hypocritical things I think that comes out of big companies like banks is that they're asking for bailouts during situations like this, but then will also throw people into the dirt and say you should have had a rainy day fund, right? So it's like, where was your rainy day fund, right? And that's about running a stable business that doesn't rely on government subsidy, if at all possible.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, because I mentioned today on my Discord, and I will talk about anything in my business. I got a fact check from the government today that I really didn't expect, and it's over coronavirus. And it wasn't triple P money. It wasn't triple P. It wasn't EIDL or anything like that. It's just that several of my tenants applied for rent relief from the local government administration. They mailed me some nice checks that I didn't know that were coming. And, I had one person on Discord like, you're taking that money, that's going to increase the cost of living for everybody else. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take it. But why? Because it's going to increase. It's going to cause inflation. It's going to increase the cost of things. Really, why are you doing it? I was like, because my competitors have added an extra zero to it,
right?
Yeah. And I have to compete with it, and I'm not happy about it. But once again, I cannot take the money that they've applied for. I did not apply for it; they did, and I just have to go cash the check. And it's just one of these weird things. We're in this thing where, I have to compete with the people that are doing extremely unscrupulous things at this time. The amount of lawsuits and people going to go to jail from EIDL and Triple P fraud is going to be earth shattering.
Oh yeah.
Just based on the people that I know. But it's an interesting time. It's a really interesting time because I know a couple people that they've crossed their T's, they've dotted their I's, they've done everything legally compliant within getting coronavirus assistance, and they are $1.5 million richer for it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And balancing that is like the competition with the unscrupulous. Balancing that I think is important because it's like it's a mistake to assume that you can always win the game by not playing.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes don't take the money. It's like well, when you don't always win by just stepping out of the game. That doesn't always work so well.
And that's why I meet a lot of well-meaning people that I care about greatly that are of different political persuasions, and they can't believe that Brandon has any Section 8 rentals. And I said, my competitors do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
okay.
the biggest. Yeah, and this is the thing. You can go back through history, and history will look back at us for exporting labor to children across the seas and the horrible work conditions. And yet here are small businesses, Kickstarters and Indiegogos that are relying on this type of labor. And it's horrific. No one wants it. But the fact of the matter is that if you do not take advantage of that, you are going to not succeed. No one wants that. And everyone should work to destroy it. But the problem is that you are always going to be complicit in aiding it on your way to destroying it. I mean, even at Battery Day, one of the things that the investors called in about was to say that they were taking resources from a certain part overseas and that it was killing people and that they could install drone surveillance to look after it.
Yeah.
And the point is, if anyone knows the plight of Elon Musk, the last thing he wants to do is take advantage of workers or get people killed in the process. But the problem is that the only way to undo those systems is to use them to break them. And that's horrible.
Yes. Well, you live on Earth. You live in a place that has a certain situation. And it's interesting. Like there's a lot of people that talk about a lot of people like to find fault, say, in the US founding fathers. And the finding fault of them is a way that they say they presented it in a way to say, okay, this discredits what they've done. And it's like, well, what did they do? They moved the buck forwards. They tried to do something,
right?
Which is way better than doing nothing.
Yeah, when you're using a broken system to succeed, what you are doing is you're destroying the system as well. Every time you move forward, that system gets closer and closer to being destroyed. Every time you innovate the candle, you get closer and closer to a light bulb. That's just how it's going to work.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And the problem that I have with a lot of different mindsets is I tell people, I say, get in the game and beat me. You don't like the quality of my rentals, get in the game and beat me. Come to Southern Ohio and build a better trailer park. Go and build a better rental. And I get aggravated sometimes at the comments, and they're like, "Oh, you're a slumlord. I can't believe you do this." And I said, "Do you live in Southern Ohio? Do you live in any of the neighborhoods I have rentals?" Because the funny thing is, I get calls from these neighborhoods all the time, and they're like, "You're the best landlord we've ever seen." And I'm like, "Really? So you watched the video where the people were smoking meth out of a bottle with a piece of aluminum tape to it? Yeah, but it's better than it was."
That's what matters. Better than it was.
I felt the same way too for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
That's also, just perspective. People who grew up in a city are never going to have the idea of like rural Ohio or rural Indiana. It is a radically different world.
And it's why I love where I am. And everybody, I had an offer years ago to go to California, and they're like, "Why do you want to do it?" And I said, "I'll show you. Maybe if you guys can see on my big screen." I said, "Here is why I love my place in Ohio." we're doing this live, and so I said I am in such a wonderful place in Ohio where I can go be in Amish country within an hour and a half. I can go. I can go to Nationwide Arena in Columbus, and we actually had several of the NBA playoffs a few years ago. And not that I'm into that level of sports or anything, but I had a couple people say, you don't care. You should just go. Just go buy the ticket. It's only $500, Brandon. Just go and watch an NBA game once in your life. Well, I don't want to do that, but and it's just one of these perspective things. It can be hard to connect the different dots, but I'm like, I can have my choice here, and there's value in it. And I get back. I don't get browbeat nearly as much as I used to, especially with the social media fame and all that stuff. But at one point, I was just browbeat. I can't believe you're living in Ohio. You can't believe you're wanting to do this. I'm like, I can grow where I've been planted in life, and I can succeed, and I can make my little part of the world better. And now I'm at a point where I can kind of broadcast and show, hey, this is what Brandon wants to do for Southern Ohio. Maybe this is a template where other people could fix and implement in the place wherever you are, whether you're in the Midwest or the South, East or West or whatever. And it's just, one of those things where I enjoy where I am. But then again, it can be hard at times for somebody, especially when Meet Kevin flew here and we went around. He's like, looking at my $2,000 trailers, and I'm like, this is kind of nice. No, it's not, Brandon. I'm like, there's only 3 holes in this wall. It's better than 5. Well, I can't, $500 trailer. A month.
I mean, every place has a different situation, and I mean, anyone that makes that place better is valuable. I mean, that's interestingly, I think that factors in with the leverage question. I think it factors in with the time period that we're in. It factors in with a whole bunch of things. We're in I think the situation of the most opportunity of not all time maybe, but the most opportunity of our lifetimes is right now. I mean, we're living in a time of economic change and social change that's beyond imagining, and we have a chance to make things better and be rewarded on a magnificent scale for it. It's absurd. I mean I think that more millionaires will be made in the next 5 years than ever before in history. And I don't say that because of the rampant inflation possibilities. I say that because there's opportunity and amazing things can happen, with people that are willing to move the buck forwards.
Yeah. So, and I think
go ahead.
And I think I think the kind of thing is that everybody needs to take into account. And the way that you do that is just by freaking trying to participate. Doesn't matter whether it's a big project or a small project. Just try and do something.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yep.
What do we got, Brandon?
Moving on to some chat questions. I've got 2 queued up that I'm ready that I think could take a while. So we might only do 2 or 3, and then we'll call it a stream.
Let's do it.
So these are from Macintosser on our chat. And let's go ahead and start with this one. So is there a reasonable entry point for jumping into real estate while being diverse in your portfolio? And they go on to say, if I bought something, that could be 85 to 95% of all of my, all of my money or all of my assets tied up into one thing. So how do you, for the first time, jump into that and still stay diverse in what you're trying to build for your life plan?
I mean, from my perspective, it might grow to be 85 to 90% of your portfolio, but I would look at it from how much capital do I have invested in this thing? And that's just kind of one of the neat features of real estate. You can go and engineer a deal with 0 down or 3% down or 5% down or 20% down or 30% down. And, I wouldn't say, hey, if you've got $10,000, you should liquidate all your stocks to get into some real estate. But from my perspective, and it's why I love real estate so much, is real estate is purely a knowledge and skill game. Has nothing to do with how much cash you have in your bank or whether you have stocks to liquidate. Can those things help you? Heck yeah. It will boost your ability to get it done. But if you have, let's say, $100,000 in cash, in between cash, stocks, everything like that, figure a way to do a real estate deal with $10,000. I don't care what state you're in, or as long as you're in the United States, maybe even Canada, there is a way to do a deal in your municipality. Even if you live in freaking Manhattan, there is a way to engineer. Because I had a guy challenge me he lived in Manhattan, and he said, I only have $40,000. I cannot buy a piece of real estate, and I had him figured out in 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I said,
Wow.
all you're going to have to do is get in a car or on a bus, and I've got the distance. You're going to have to drive 45 minutes, or you're going to have to travel for 45 minutes.
Right.
And he said, how's that? And I said, I can find you a duplex in Stamford, Connecticut for $350,000 with 10% down, and it's only going to cost you $35,000 down with $5,000 in rehab cost. And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, stop looking he was in Westchester, I guess. And that's like the average price in Westchester is $1.2 million. And I said, why didn't you look in Stamford? Well, I didn't know you should do that. I'm like, see? That's why I like real estate. It's a knowledge-based game. And, it's one of those things where, I mean, from what I understand, he ended up going to Stamford and bought a duplex. And, he went from thinking that he needed his initial question was, I need 30% of $1.2 million to buy a piece of property to get in real estate. I want to be in real estate. And it's like, no, you need to think a little bit outside the box. I mean, I'm not angry at you. I don't accuse you of not knowing, you don't know what you don't know. But then as your knowledge base grows and you realize, well, I have to give something. It either has to be cash or time. And to me, if you want to get into something, then you need to start investing your time as opposed to your money. And so then that way you're not deploying this obscene amount of capital, losing all your diversification. You're having to spend some time.
Yeah. The next question is dealing with stress. What are key indicators, at least for you, for Brandon, that you realize, like, oh my God, I am getting way too indentured into this issue. I am freaking myself out. How can you tell that, and then how do you remedy that?
I need the answer to that one. I don't feel very successful in that during coronavirus. Pre-coronavirus, I would have rattled off, and I would say I would take a break. I would go to I'm a decent level leader at my church. I'm over a group of guys. They're all like military, law enforcement dudes. And it's like, we can sit down and we could take over a country, I think, if we really tried. And it's like, if I sit down with a good group of guys and I can kind of decompress what's going on mentally with me, and I can get stuff figured out. Because within the circle of, a dozen guys that I deal with, I can find an answer to something. We can get it figured out, or at least I'll feel better about it because somebody else has gone through that and they say, just tough it out. It's okay. You'll be through it. And that's one of the coronavirus legacy things that if you don't have that input, then I know I get overstressed, and that's where I've been at. And then I finally made the decision. I don't care what it's going to cost me. I've got to get a manager here. Even if I don't have the ability to train and build a manager exactly how I want, it's going to cost me more money. It's going to be less efficient, but at least for my own stress level, that's going to reduce. So,
yeah, I would say
the stress level is, I think it's a remarkably good sign that something needs to be done. It's amazing. Like, Investment Joy, that was something that needed to happen. Like we talked about that earlier, about the conversation of like learning to get others on the job and outsourcing and all of that. And then the stress was the thing that moved you towards it. And I find that really common. It seems like in my life and the people that I'm talking to, it's really common that it's like the stressor is the signal of sometimes it's the most useful information we have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say my personal remedy, or the way I notice it in myself, is almost exactly what Josh said. Whenever I start to feel, I don't even know if I want to call it stress, but it's whenever I start thinking about all of the possibilities of the things that I need to do. Because normally, whenever I think about the task in front of me, I'm not thinking about, oh, I have to do this, 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 and this. I'm thinking about the ways that I can get those done, because there is no one way to solve the problems of your
Mhm.
everyday life, right? There's a multitude. So I'd rather focus on those. And once I start having 80 possibilities for each one of those, then I realize, oh God, there's actually a lot going on. Because the more ways there is to solve something, the much more difficult of an issue it has become.
Yes.
So yeah, for example, like in graphic design, which is something I do professionally, the problem with a creative venture is that there are literally infinitesimal ways that you can do a project. Just like up into a
Yes.
point, so long as you have a drawing tablet or Photoshop, you can accomplish anything. And once you lose sight of what you want to do, everything is now possible,
Yeah.
and it becomes horrifying. That's
It's
when
just
I
begging
step
for
back.
neuroticism.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
it just
And,
begs for it.
and I step back and I look at, and I think probably all of us do this to an extent, where you literally just break it down to the first step. I break my stress down to what is the first thing I have to do, walk it up from there. And that's just the beginning, because the first 5 minutes are the hardest part of a 2-hour long task. It's not about cleaning my room. I can clean my room. The problem is starting. So I just have to convince myself to pick up 2 cans, and it's like, well, shit, I'm already standing. I already have the trash bag out. I might as well get it done. And you can scale that up infinitely. Start with the
Yes.
smallest thing, and eventually your stress will convince you that it is more stressful to stop now.
Yes, I agree. I'm a huge fan of meditation. It's something that I do a lot in my life, and it's interesting because it taps into exactly what you described. I mean, what do you need to do to live? Like, well, you need your heartbeat and you need a breath, and so in a way, it does tap into that fundamental of, okay, let's start here, and
Right.
I it's interesting because I don't want to meditate. I don't want to. Um, but if I sit down and look at that fundamental, then I'll calm down enough that I can then extrapolate out and go, okay, what's the next thing I need to do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do what one more question. What do you think?
Yeah, one more
Let's
sounds
do
good
one
to
more.
me. Let me see if I have. I'm gonna look at Investment Joy's chat.
Yeah.
Nope, nothing there. So we'll take this last one. Um, one of Josh Terry's videos was about longevity, where eventually they're wondering, is there a threshold where longevity isn't useful to you because things are changing faster than longevity is going to allow you to hold on for. So this kind of goes back to that factory your friend bought, right? Where longevity there in their business led to their demise, even though they had the long-standing history to make 6 million, because they didn't move with the time and they didn't gut everything and rebuild it, right? So I guess the idea is, where's the balance in doing that in your own ventures?
Yeah, I know if we're talking about the literal construction of buildings, which is I'm reading the comment here.
Yeah.
To me, it's one of those things where it's just about impossible to know exactly what you do. If you study building, the way that buildings are constructed, the United States and Canada, Canada's there too. The way the United States and Canada builds our buildings, whether it's residential or commercial, just night and day different than they do in Europe, and to an extent, somewhat Asia. But Asia has such a wide range of buildings. The mentality, there's a huge mentality difference between Europe and the United States. And I get people complaining from Europe all the freaking time on my TikToks and my YouTubes about, I can't believe you stupid Americans, you don't build houses to last. And I said, when was the last time you had to run cat 5 or cat 5 or cat 6 through your house?
Oh
I
yeah.
thought so. When was the last time you had to run a new electrical socket? Thought so. When was the last time you tried to run a new fan and you decided, I want a new light with a fan in the ceiling? When was the last time you did
Right.
that? and that shuts them up really quick. And
Yeah.
they were like, then they have this question. So it's, well, what do you mean? I said, in the United States, we do that. You know
It's
what?
modular.
I want to build onto my house. I'll do it. Want to build a new deck? I'll do it. I could punch a hole through the wall right now with a jackhammer, and we can turn my kid's bedroom and double the size. And I can do that in 2 days. And if you're living in Germany right now with a lot of limestone and stone construction, it's going to take you months. And the
Yeah.
cost to do that is going to be infinitely higher.
Right.
But
And they have a. Go ahead. Go ahead.
is your way truly better than ours?
Yeah.
I don't think.
They also have an issue with historical homes that we really don't. You know how many historical properties there are that are being used for modern applications every day, but they cannot remodel it, or at least not in the meaningful ways that they want to, because
Yeah.
there are so many laws and statutes that protect it. I think that that's wonderful, but I also think that it's incredibly hindered. Like
Yeah.
you lose a lot of functionality with that.
Yeah, and what's also interesting though is we do have some of those restrictions in the United
Oh yeah.
States in different historic areas. Because where I live, the one city has buildings that were constructed in the early 1800s, and I know
Yes.
compared to somebody in Europe that's brand new. But then on the west coast of the United States, I remember going to Seattle for my honeymoon years ago, and I just could not get over the fact that there wasn't a single building anywhere that we ran into that was older than 1930. And where I live, like the average house age is 120 years old. So even in the United States, there's a difference between an old house to me is early 1800s. A old house in Seattle was like 1930, 1940. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, going back to the Europeans I've had, I said, is Europe way better? After we have the conversations about modularity and construction, they'll admit to me our way isn't better. And I said, I'm not here to tell you that the American way is better either.
Mhm.
I just want you to grasp the concept that we have built different kinds of houses based on our own unique economies and the way that our everything's structured. Wood's cheap in the United States. Yeah, our
Yeah.
houses don't last as long, but man, it sure is cheap to rebuild them if they fall apart. And yeah, it's
Yep.
kind of nice.
Yeah, I think I look at it as a balance between stability and independence. So it's the longer lasting the thing is, the more firm it is, the longer it the sort of there's a sense of safety there. And then
Mhm.
the more nimble you are, the more easily it's built, the more capable you are of change. And both of these are necessary. It goes back to our needs for, no human can survive without certainty and uncertainty. If we were completely certain, we'd go insane from boredom, and if we were completely uncertain, we'd go insane from terror, right? So we have to have a constant sort of interplay between those two things. And then there's different personalities that work better off of more or less certainty and uncertainty. And
Right.
then there's entire social structures that work better in more and less certainty and uncertainty. So I think it's striking a balance for those things. I think America was able to the US was able to be comfortable with such a high level of uncertainty that enabled us to grow at just an absurd pace that
Mhm.
caused a lot of cool things to happen.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, I think there is value in the other side. Um,
Mhm.
is I don't know. I can't. I've actually thought a good bit about this, and I can't find bad in either one. I mean,
Yeah.
they both have strengths and weaknesses.
Oh yeah.
But I think they're both incredibly valuable. I mean, there's something wonderful about the fact that there are castles that are still on Earth.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
something incredible about that makes us feel a little bit more like us. I don't know how to phrase it perfectly, but you know, it's a part of our identity that, oh yes, we last a little while.
Right.
Because
We
you know,
well
we do
that
live
we
in this
have
terror of
pertinent.
turning to dust.
Yeah.
What's that?
And
Yeah.
this is called the Loveland Castle. It's in Cincinnati, right outside Cincinnati, Ohio. The guy that built this was stationed in World War I in a French castle that was built in 900 AD. And
Wow.
he did his best in southern Ohio to recreate the castle that he was stationed at in France. And going through this place was just one of the most absurd things I've ever done in my
That's
life.
wild.
And talking to those guys there that they actually helped build it. He employed child labor in southern Ohio to build it because
Oh,
he
jeez.
got a group of kids together. Said, "You want to build a castle?" And they, all these kids were like, "Yes!" And they started in 1930, and they are still working on it today. And I talked to one of the kids, one of the guys. He's like 70, 80 years old now, and he's like, "I remember when we started and we laid the first block here." And they built the concrete out. They filled concrete milk cartons with they took milk cartons and they filled them with concrete, and that's how they built the blocks here, other than the limestone that they got from the Miami River. And I went through that, and the guy said, "This thing right here is modeled on the French blah 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 from the 10th century." And I'm like, this is so absurd, but it's so awesome because this will be here way after I'm dead.
Yeah.
And they made the way they built this castle in Loveland. They're like, we made it earthquake proof. I'm like, when was the last time Ohio ever had an earthquake? But if it happens, it'll be okay. Cool. That's nice. So.
Yeah, I think the long lasting gives us a little sense of meaning and stability, and the nimble things that don't last give us sort of a sense of hope that we can make things better, we can shift towards better. But yeah, I love them both. Well, this has been delightful, you guys. I've really enjoyed this.
Despite my technical difficulties happening all around me every second. Besides that, it's been fantastic.
Yes. Thank you, Investment Joy, for coming on so much. Thank you, Brand Dominos, for making this work.
Yeah, no problem. And before we head out, I wanted to say, Brandon, do you have anything you want to shout out or promote before we go?
Not really. I mean, the big thing is we've got the over here on this side. I think they can use the query and get my they can clone my M1 portfolio, but I don't know that bot's up and working. So there's not a phenomenal number of people on the stream that I can plug too many products to. I just, more than anything, in my link tree, I've got a project that I'm working on where I live stream a day of being an entrepreneur and going out and trying to start businesses and things like that. I think that'll be a really cool project. So if anybody wants to follow that along, there's somewhere in my link tree, there's a mentorship sign up, and I've spent a lot of money on that, but we don't have too much to show for it yet. So.
Yes, please. Anybody that came to the stream through my channels, please go grab a hold of Investment Joy. I love his stuff. Go find Brand Dominos. He's got some awesome stuff going on TikTok.
For sure. I try my best. And Josh has amazing things as well. Go check out Josh on TikTok. Josh, do you want to shout out your coaching?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe there's a link in the About section for coaching. That seems to be what I'm doing the most, and I'm loving it. I'm getting to meet people that I want to meet, so it's delightful. Yeah. So if you think you'd like to work on something together, go check it out. You can get a link to my calendar down below.
Yeah, cool. And then my only thing is go to branddominos.com/Webull. Webull has been incredibly awesome with their influencer program, where you're going to get, I think it's till the end of October, you get free stock just for signing up. You don't even have to put money in right now. You sign up and you get a free stock with Webull. Then if you put $100 in, you get 2 more. It's just $100. So you get 3 free stock. It's an incredibly cool opportunity. So Brandominos, my name /Webull. Brandominos.com. That's all I got. Brandon, I hope we have you back on sooner rather than later. I would love to do a complete nerd stream sometime where we play some kind of game together, like Factorio or something. That could be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I haven't played Factorio before, but we've got several guys on my Discord that say it's awesome. So,
oh yeah. All right. Well,
All right,
thank you again so much, everyone.
Yes, everyone have a good one, and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Cool. Okay, guys.